The following is a presentation of the BP8 Podcast Network.
What's up, Wake Forest? We are back with another episode after Hurricane Florence. We took a little bit of a break there.
Yeah.
I think we needed to.
We needed a break. I feel sorry we had friends of ours that came up from Wilmington and stayed with us for a full week so that they could get away from their place down in Leland.
Have they been able to get back?
Yeah, they got back Wednesday and had electricity and were able to get to and from everything. So the biggest complaint they have right now is they can't find any bacon at the grocery store. So I guess if that's the worst thing that's happened, that things are okay.
Yeah, I know Wilmington was like on an island there for a little bit.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And New Bern, of course. We had great thing that we had, I'm with Keller Williams Realty, and KW Cares, which is a nonprofit that was formed in response to Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans, was deployed to the coast of North Carolina. And so we had millions of dollars in support down there for the folks in that area with 18-wheeler trucks. Biggest problem we had was just getting them there. And we had a whole bunch of friends and KW family that went down there with KW Cares. So thanks to all the folks that spent time volunteering to help out there. There were a lot of folks in muck boots and washing their hands in bleach to get all of the bacteria off of it. And I know Eddie and Laura Burton, who are in our office, are always working hard to keep the impact of KW Cares up with us. So it was nice to see all of the friends and KW family that came in. We had people from all over the country from Keller Williams that were coming in, so it was kind of neat to clean it up. But it looks like the rivers have finally crested at their peaks, and we can finally see some light at the end of the tunnel. Of course, we've got remnants of Hurricane Florence now off the coast in the Atlantic Ocean that, although it's not likely to turn into anything dangerous, could put some more rain on the coast. But I'd be perfectly happy to see that thing go on away and not come back again. So I've had enough of hurricanes for this season already.
Well, unfortunately, we're still kind of early in the season.
We are.
We got to be prepared. There's still a lot of people that still need help, though.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And the state of North Carolina has done a good job with keeping things organized. The Red Cross opened their shelter in Wake Forest on Saturday, a week ago yesterday, if I recall correctly, and then it was closed on Monday, if I recall, or on Sunday, excuse me. Let me rephrase that. They opened it on Friday morning and officially opened at 1 o'clock, and then it was closed on Sunday because there was only a max of about 33 people there. But they were prepared to take up to 250 people with an additional 250 able to be handled with food and meals, and they were well organized. But we sent them over to the Dean Dome at Chapel Hill, where they sent the folks from not only Heritage High School but also Sanderson and Knightdale that had run
in Southeast Raleigh.
In Southeast Raleigh that had run. So got them all over there, and Wake County schools got reopened as quick as they could. So I know there are a few folks that have to spend a day at school on a Saturday, and folks were complaining about that. But boy, we sure would rather be safe than sorry when it comes to things like that. I know that it's a frustration. I mean, we have I've been there with kids trying to schedule around things, and it's the good news is that in all things considered, yes, we had a loss of life, but ultimately the loss of life was minimal, and mostly for people making bad decisions because they chose to drive into waters that they shouldn't have. Unfortunately, we had quite a few folks that passed away in that manner, but the good news is Wake Forest was minimally impacted. I think we had about 50 people without power at one point, and the power crews got back out there and took care of it. The police department and fire department both stepped up for the shelter over at Heritage High School, and we thank them. I know that I saw Officer Scott Graham and Officer Mike Pender over there at different times, and I think Officer Woyeki was over there too. So thanks to all of the police officers. I'm sure I'm missing someone because they were basically on duty for 24 hours a day, but I'm sure I've missed someone. But thanks to all the Wake Forest PD and the fire department that did such a great job. And of course, we thank our electric linemen. We've got a few electric linemen that we sent down earlier this week to assist with the recovery because we had made it through okay. So thanks to those folks also.
This is kind of a side note, but did you see the pictures of all the fish, the dead fish on I-40?
Yes.
It's very eerie.
It
shows you just how powerful.
Well, people forget. I mean, I grew up in Miami, Florida, Biloxi, Mississippi, and Myrtle Beach. So hurricanes make me nervous anyway. And we moved to Biloxi, Mississippi about 1.5 2 years after Hurricane Camille hit, which is still one of the worst to ever hit the coast. It was a Category 5 when it hit with winds of 200 miles an hour and pretty much wiped out the Gulf Coast and Biloxi. And I remember there still being boats across the street from the main drag that had been pushed up during Camille that people just couldn't afford to get them moved. And so I've always been a little nervous about it. And in 1989, I had just moved to Raleigh in August, and I got a call from Johnny Diaz, who was the program director down at WKZQ in Myrtle Beach, which is where I had most recently been on the air. And he asked if I'd be willing to come back to Myrtle Beach in order to work for the hurricane. And so I agreed to. I had not changed my driver's license over yet, which it was a good thing because I had to have my driver's license with a local address to get on the island in Myrtle Beach. So I drove down through Loris, South Carolina, for those of you that remember driving down Highway 9, and went in through North Myrtle Beach where Highway 17 and Highway 90 connect. They checked my ID and sent me on my way. And my dad was the publisher of the newspaper. And I remember Governor Campbell at the time and Dad communicating, trying to make sure that Dad had all of the everything that he needed in order to publish a newspaper, because it would pretty much be the only way that many people would get their news for a couple of days.
Right.
Because we expected power to be out so long, and it certainly was. So I was broadcasting at Hugo, and basically was down on the boardwalk in Myrtle Beach, and they came live to me just as a wave hit the boardwalk and a part of it crumbled. And all I remember is picking up my mobile system and running to the Jeep and driving back to the WKZQ broadcast headquarters, and I stayed there through the rest of the storm. And then I know Dad the next morning was trying to get back on the island, and the National Guard wouldn't let him on the island, even though he explained he was the publisher of the newspaper and they had to get a newspaper out. And so Dad had to make a phone call to Governor Campbell, and eventually one of those big National Guard trucks that you saw rescuing people, one of the haulers that they put a whole bunch of people in the back of, came by to pick up Dad and some of the other news people in order to get them on the island so that they could actually report from Myrtle Beach, because there was no news crews allowed. So the only news coming off of the island for about a week was the reporters from the Sun News down there. And then Dad also helped with the Hurricane Hugo Recovery Task Force, because everybody was reporting that Myrtle Beach was wiped out. And the concern was, if people thought Myrtle Beach was wiped out, that they'd change their vacation plans, because you have to make your vacation plans in the fall in order to go to Myrtle Beach back in those days, because there were so few hotel rooms. So there was a lot of concern that the tourism industry would be really destroyed. So luckily they were able to get the word out. And I just remember waking up one morning and turning on the news and seeing Dad on, I think it was either the Today Show or Good Morning America, broadcasting from Myrtle Beach, talking about it with Dad to know that they were there. So they can be so devastating, and there's no sense in playing with them. You know, a lot of the folks that decided they were going to stay ended up having to be rescued, and when you do that, that puts other lives in danger. And I can't recall how many times we've heard people be told, don't drive around barricades, don't drive into water that's more than 6 inches deep. And yet invariably every year, you know, every time it happens, more people die after the storm making bad decisions than actually die from the winds and the rain itself. It's, you know, people don't understand, just because it's not a Category 3 wind anymore, it's not the wind that's the damage, it's the storm surge and all the water that comes from it. Yeah. And we got to see that over the past couple of weeks. So hopefully we won't have to deal with it again. But thank goodness that most people are safe. And you know, there are a lot of folks that are going to have to rebuild their homes and their places of residence, and they may have lost things, but at least they still have their lives and their family. So we're happy with that, at least.
And again, thankfully, no one really in our area was really affected.
Yeah, Wake Forest, I think we saw maybe 40-mile-an-hour winds. Now, we saw a lot of rain. I think we had we have a number 2 wash tub that we put out just to see how much rain we got, and it was full. It got to the point where it overflowed, and I know that I think it was the Lumber River. When they were measuring it, it was so high that the gauge that they used to measure it was maxed out. So they have no idea about the actual height of the river eventually. So it was definitely devastating, and it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars to the North Carolina economy and in FEMA and insurance and rebuilding. So it's pretty sad to see all of the hard work of people over the years. It's amazing how quickly it can get knocked out.
So our town was basically shut down for that whole weekend, and we lost our last Friday night on White.
Yeah, Friday night on White was canceled. There were a lot of weekend events that were canceled. There was an event at the Ailey Young House that was canceled. The Good Neighbor Day was canceled and rescheduled for this past weekend. So it was. The good news is all of the stuff at the new swimming pool came through okay. So that's good. We're finally able to open that.
You had the grand opening.
Grand opening of that was yesterday on Saturday. And unfortunately, I was not able to be here. I was out of town visiting with my daughter up in Boone, but We've gotten it open, and the good news is it'll be opened a little bit early next year, so people can begin to enjoy it towards the end of April, and we'll have it open all the way through Labor Day and past Labor Day so that people can enjoy that. And we're excited, and I know that it's been frustrating for those that have not been able to get to the pool for 2 years, but the good news is it's finished, the project's ready, and
it looks great.
It looks fantastic.
The slides look really cool.
The slides are good.
I want to go down the slides.
It's basically got 3 separate pools. You've got a swimming pool that's got a diving board in it. It's one of the few pools that you'll see public that has a diving board. It's got the water slide, and then it's got the tots pool where the little kids can have the water pour on them and things like that. So it's definitely going to be exciting. We've got the canopies over there, and it's a wonderful addition and an upgrade to Holden Park. So we're glad that it's finally finished.
And as far as other things that did happen besides the storm, we had something with Fire Captain Reginald Rogers.
Yeah, we're really excited to honor Captain Reginald Rogers from the Wake Forest Fire Department. He is actually the first retiree of the Wake Forest Fire Department, and he retired in the month of September of 2018 and had a total of 38 years of service to the fire department in Wake Forest. These guys are pretty amazing. If the firemen are a group of folks that they may be full-time here in Wake Forest, and they'll be part-time in Youngsville, or they're full-time in Youngsville and they're part-time in Raleigh and Wake Forest. They work 40 or 50 hours a week, and then they go on shift again to volunteer for other areas, and it's really an interesting mindset. I've gotten to know a few of these guys over the years, and they're pretty amazing folks. They're always willing to step up and assist with community events. We recently had them provide the honor guard at the Heritage High School Heroes Appreciation Night, which we'll talk about a little bit later. They're always at the flag raisings downtown when we honor the folks with the flag flying over Town Hall and things like that. So for Captain Rogers, he's very well liked, very popular not only in the fire department but in the community. And he was very moved by the fact that we honored him, and the mayor honored him with a proclamation at our September meeting. And it was nice to see everybody's reaction to that, and especially the other firefighters. It was a full room of firefighters that were in there to help honor him, and that's the type of thing that I love about Wake Forest.
So continuing the theme of our heroes, we had the Hero Appreciation Night. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, at Hero Appreciation Night at Heritage High School. It happened on Friday the 21st of September.
Yep.
And it was really neat. We had an old fire truck that Randy and Jill Bright, who own Bright Funeral Home, they provided that to us. And then we had another fire truck that was out there from the Wake Forest Fire. We had the honor guard from the Wake Forest Fire Department presenting the colors. Mm-hmm. And then the police department, Mike Pender from the Wake Forest Police Department, who's also the school resource officer over at Heritage High School, actually did the coin flip with other members of the Wake Forest Police Department. And Mike was excited because Heritage won the coin toss. So he said, my job is done. I don't ever have to do that again. I'm undefeated.
Heritage wore some camo jerseys.
Yeah, the story of the jerseys is really cool. They were blue and gray camouflage jersey with lime green numbers on it. Now, to be honest with you, as the PA announcer, seeing the lime green numbers was very difficult from the press box. They were hard to read, but they were basically a tribute to the military. And the kids did not know they were getting the uniforms until Friday morning when they got to school, and they had worn their regular uniforms, and the coaches called them into the locker rooms in order to pass out the new uniforms. And so the kids actually got to wear the new uniforms at school on Friday before the game. So everybody was pumped up for that. And then probably the neatest part at pregame, we honored 3 veterans from the Wake Forest community. Tim Mock, who was stationed in Turkey from 1984 to 1990, who was responsible, his platoon and his unit were responsible for guarding nuclear armaments in Istanbul for the United States to make sure that things didn't get stolen or there was no firing on them to remove them from stock.
That's a pretty important job.
It's a lot more important than it sounds. I don't know how to make it sound cooler, but it's one of those jobs that somebody's got to do it, and it's highly important. And if you met Tim, who's also a real estate agent here in town with Coldwell Banker HPW, and he lives over in Wakefield, but nice guy. He came out, and then another guy that came out was a guy named Ronnie Floyd. And Ronnie Floyd was in the United States Navy, petty officer 2nd class, served from 1959 to 1963, and he was on the aircraft carrier Valley Forge. And so he was sailing all over the world in that day. If you remember, that was during the time of the Korean conflict. And so he was riding across the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans over and over again. And he said he lost track of how many times he crossed the international date line. So that was kind of cool.
Wow.
And then the last person we honored was a guy that a lot of folks in Wake Forest know. His name is Jim Dyer. Jim retired from the U.S. Army as a lieutenant colonel, and he was a helicopter pilot during the Vietnam War. And Jim is now a chaplain here in Wake Forest. He's an ordained Southern Baptist minister. And we were excited to have him there because the night before, he and his wife, Ruth Ann, who is also a realtor here in Wake Forest with Fonville Morrissey, Jim and Ruth Ann on Thursday, the 20th of September, I believe it is, celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And so they took time out of their schedule to come out to Heritage so that we could honor Jim for the Heroes Appreciation Night. And then, of course, we also recognize the EMS from Wake County, who's always there to take care of us. And the Heritage High School Band at the pregame played America the Beautiful while the colors were presented. And then we presented the national anthem. And I was impressed that even though I did not ask people to as the PA announcer, I did not have to say anything about standing up for America the Beautiful, as both the home side with Heritage fans and the Holly Springs side on the visiting side, everybody was on their feet, and it was great to see. It was a very patriotic display. About the only thing we could have done to make it cooler was a flyover, and I'm not sure the people in Danforth would have liked that if we'd have done that. So it was really cool, though. It was one of those things that I hope we do it every year.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounded really nice. I wish I was there. I'm sure all the kids liked it too.
Oh, I think the kids had a great time. They had the kids had white T-shirts made that had the American flag on them with the Heritage logo in the blue section.
Yep.
And there were some that said Husky Nation, and then on the back of them they said United We Stand. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Coach Bethea, who is the head JV football coach at Heritage and the linebackers coach for the varsity squad. He was up in the press box with us, actually, and he was a former New York firefighter.
Oh, wow.
So we also honored him during the ceremony, as well as the other Wake Forest and firefighters, EMS, and police. So
Very
it was
cool.
an
Very
awesome,
cool.
awesome night. I hope we do it again soon.
Yep. So moving on from that, and speaking of veterans, we have the where is it?
The Wall That Heals.
Yes, the wall that
Yeah.
heals. I lost it in my notes.
This is something that I want to encourage people to attend. The Wall That Heals is a replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. And it is going to be on display at Joyner Park Thursday, October 18th through Sunday, October 21st. And it's going to be open 24 hours a day, and it will close at 2 p.m. on Sunday, the 21st. Now, there will be a parade on Thursday, the 18th, probably between 12 and 1, where they're actually bringing the pieces of the wall in to put it together. But I'm going to encourage everybody. The Wake Forest Purple Heart Foundation is the reason that we're getting this. It's the only stop in North Carolina this year. And if you want an opportunity, moms and dads, to teach your kids about the history in the United States, it's a great opportunity to do so and bring them out and let them really get a taste. The last time one of these walls came through, we were down at Moore Square Park in Raleigh, and it was the Dignity Memorial Wall that came through at that time. And I was doing interviews with veterans. I was working on the Veterans History Project with the Library of Congress at the time. And during that two to 3 year period, we interviewed somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 veterans as we recapped some information for the Library of Congress after the VA administration building record storage had a fire in it. So we were re-upping the information and making sure that it was captured for posterity. But one of my favorite interviews was with a military veteran from World War II at the time. And of course, there are fewer and fewer of those left every day. But I was doing an interview with this gentleman, and he was talking about an invasion, and I don't remember all of the details, but he went into extensive detail about a gentleman that was in his unit that was his best friend, and they had separated when they came back from overseas, and he had not seen his friend in over 30 years.
Wow.
And he went on about his way, and about an hour later, I was interviewing another gentleman, and he was telling stories very similar to the stories I had heard from the other gentleman earlier. And it turns out the guy that the first one was talking about was the man I was interviewing. And so I went running. I said, "Can you hold on a minute, please?" I hit pause on the recorder, and I went running to see if I could find this man. So I'm running through Moore Square Park with about 5,000 people down there, going up to the wall, and the good Lord was looking out for me that day because I found the gentleman. I brought him back to the tent where I was doing my interviews, and when they saw each other, they embraced. Needless to say, tears flowed from not only them, but everybody that was watching what was going on, including myself. Wow. I was just bawling. And we put the microphone in front of both of them, and I think I've got about an hour and 30 minutes of recording of them telling stories about everything from the enrolling and enlisting in the service and to the day they went to boot camp and all of their memories from the travel and all the crazy things they did. And there were some things that we probably shouldn't mention publicly that they participated in, but had a great time. But it was a phenomenal opportunity, and things like that can happen with this wall being in town. So if nothing else, take some time so that if you don't go, you're going to wish you had. So again, that's the Wall That Heals. It'll be at Joyner Park Thursday through Sunday, October 18th through 21st. It'll be open 24 hours a day. And for more information, you can go to the Town of Wake Forest website at wakeforestnc.gov and just type into the search bar the Wall That Heals, and it will bring you all of the detailed information. Again, this is free. It is open to the public, and it is going to be sponsored by the Purple Heart Foundation. It is 375 feet in length and stands 7.5 feet high at its tallest point. So you'll be able to experience the wall rising above them as they walk towards the apex, which is very similar to the design in Washington, D.C. And there are sponsorship levels for that if you'd like to be a sponsor of that if you're a local business. The top end sponsor is $7,500, $2,500, $1,500, $1,000 on down to $500. So if you'd like to be a sponsor of that, I encourage companies here in the area to do so. But I think that's going to be an amazing event for the town of Wake Forest. Cool. Yeah.
And before that, we have another event called National Night Out.
National Night Out is presented by the Wake Forest Police Department. They encourage residents, businesses, and neighborhood groups to show their support for the police department. That's going to be on Monday, October 1st from 5 p.m. to 7:30, and it's going to be in the parking lot at the Renaissance Center, 405 Brook Street. So we want to make sure folks come out for that. It's a huge parking lot party. You'll see fire trucks. You'll see police cars. There will be demonstrations from some of the K9 dogs from the Wake Forest Police Department. There will be music. Target is always involved with this. They really get behind it and help with a lot of the volunteers. But it's definitely an evening that you can bring the kids out. I believe VIP for a VIP, which is the drunk driving program that they present to the local high schools, is going to be there. You can see what happens in a rollover accident and things like that. So it's an awesome experience.
You can wear the goggles, probably.
You can wear the goggles and see what happens when you drink and drive with the golf cart. So lots of things for you to do out there. Again, that's from 5 to 7:30 p.m. And again, that's in the Wake Forest Renaissance Center parking lot. But basically, the goal of this is to team law enforcement agencies with citizens, community leaders, civic groups, and local businesses to promote safe and healthy neighborhoods. So we definitely encourage people to attend that.
It should be a very good night.
Absolutely.
And, quickly, we're going to go through the recent meeting we had.
Yeah, we had a town board meeting in September. We had a lot of things going on.
The first thing we want to talk about is the Tryon subdivision.
Yeah, the Tryon subdivision is located over off of Oak Grove Church Road on the northeast quadrant of Wake Forest. It's a large subdivision that's already in the process of being built, but they were able to pick up another piece of land. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is it's got some unique features of it that we approved some things that we normally wouldn't, and as town commissioners. And that is that normally when we build a subdivision, we require street stubs at the end of the property line wherever streets are built so that they can eventually continue to the next subdivision that might be built adjacent. And in this case, we made some exceptions to build cul-de-sacs at the end of those. If you've ever driven through Wake Forest, you know how connected it is. You can go through any part of any neighborhood and go through and get to the other side. And we've done that for years. And we've probably been targeting that for about 25 years at this point. And the reason is so that if a road is shut down for emergency purposes, we have ways to get people through from one part of town to another.
For the most part.
Yeah, and that's the goal of it. Of course, you're always going to have issues when you have the ability to cut through. You get people driving too fast through residential neighborhoods and things like that. So we always encourage people to watch their speed. We certainly don't want anything tragic happening, but this one was unique because of the fact that we approved the cul-de-sacs instead of the street stubs. So that was a big issue and something that was fairly unusual, but we were able to come to agreement with the adjacent property owners and find a win-win for everybody involved. So we were happy that we could do that. And then there was another one called the Glen Oaks request. This is legislative case RZ 18-10, and it involves 74 acres located on Capitol Boulevard. If you're going north on Capitol Boulevard, this is just before you get to the CenturyLink building, but it's on the opposite side of the street there. And it's adjacent to the Glen Oaks subdivision. This is an area where the developer originally came to the table with the typical 10-foot buffers. And, of course, anytime something's built adjacent to current property owners that have been there for a long time, those folks can understandably be disappointed that their property is going to be disturbed by new construction, and there are always concerns with that, and we certainly understand that, and we certainly do everything we can in order to find a win-win scenario. Unfortunately, this property was owned by a family, and the matriarch of the family had some, I guess it was Alzheimer's issues. Mm-hmm. And so some of the residents had apparently had conversations with her, and they were claiming that she had promised them a 50-foot buffer. And of course, that's 5 times the amount of buffer that is typically required. Now, some of these lots, just so we've got the picture here, are 1.5 to 2 acres. So the buffer between the back property line and the actual house on some of these, I think the closest one we looked at was about 140 feet, just to give you an idea, which is almost 50 yards. And so it's a significant buffer that they already had. And the developer actually came back to this one and said, look, I understand that they don't want the 10 feet. There's no way I can give them the 50 feet and still make the project viable. But what he was able to do, and what they were willing to do, was to do a 25-foot buffer. And so in addition to that, the homeowners had the same concerns that we were talking about a moment ago in Tryon with the stubbed streets. And that's always a challenge that people have because they don't understand that connectivity issue that we try to make happen. But ultimately, that one went through. It's going to have townhouses. It's going to have single-family homes, and they're probably going to be in, my guess is they probably start in the 230, 235 range when they get there, and maybe some townhomes under that range. But the single-family homes are probably going to be in the 235, 240 range would be my guess. Probably go up to somewhere around 325 to 340 would be a range that I could see. And then that property was also annexed into the town of Wake Forest, so it'll be on city water and sewer and things like that. So the good news is, if those folks in that neighborhood that are adjacent will ever want to tie into city water and sewer, they can come to the town and request to do so and actually tap in, just in case something, in case they decide they don't want to be on the well and septic systems that they're currently on right now.
Yeah, those stubs are very important, I think.
They are, and the challenge with them is that nobody likes for something to be built right in their backyard. I've been there, I've done that. My backyard has an apartment community in it over in Heritage, so I understand how frustrating that can be for people. But over time, when the property is cleared and they get ready to lay the sewage and the sewer pipes and the electricity and cable and things like that, and build the roads, they're going to clear it off. But as the property matures, it's going to be okay. And I think that the fear of the unknown is deeper than the fear of something once it's been completed. At least you know what you're dealing with once it's been completed, and the anxiety that is created by not knowing for sure what it's going to look like. A lot of people don't have the vision, including myself. I don't have the vision for a builder to say, well, this is what it's going to look like, and to have an idea. That's why they give us these renderings at our meetings, so that we can get an idea of what the final product's going to look like.
Yeah. That's all I had.
That's all I've got, too.
Yeah.
Thanks again to the town staff at the town of Wake Forest. We were greatly prepared for far worse than we received, and with the cast of thousands working behind, it was definitely a smooth process with the hurricane. So, and thank you also to the citizens. The citizens in Wake Forest did a good job of staying off the roads so that if there was an emergency, it could be handled quickly, and that was greatly appreciated by all involved.
Yep, and very proud of everyone sticking together.
Absolutely. The great thing about, as devastating as these things can be, what it does to bring a community together to help fellow members of the community and surrounding communities to recover. That's probably the best part of humanity that you see. Very similar to the feel that we got, within the 30 to 60 days after 9/11, when everybody was willing to pitch in and do whatever they wanted, do whatever they could in order to provide for the best for everybody around them.
Yep. Well, that'll do it for us. make sure if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on iTunes.
Absolutely. And if you got a question about something going on in Wake Forest, let us know. All of the material that you're hearing from tonight is all from people bringing up ideas to us. So if you got something you want us to talk about or want to discuss more, or if you know somebody in the community that we should meet and get to know better on this podcast, we'd certainly love to do so.
Yep, all ideas are appreciated.
Very good.
And share. If you like it, share.
If you like it, share it.
Yep.
You can see it on YouTube, on iTunes, on SoundCloud.
Yep.
I don't know where all you've got this thing going, Joel, but it seems to reach.
It's on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud.
All I know is that my mother thinks it's cool that she can listen to me on iTunes. She thinks that's cool that her son's on iTunes.
If you can't find it, then there's an issue with
That's
you.
Right. That's right. So if you need help finding it, let us know in the comments, and we'll get you hooked up with something that can play.
All right, cool. Thanks. Bye-bye.